All right. Well, welcome to California Times, everybody. This is Guy Meyer. I'm here with my friend Rick Johnson, and we're going to get into it for a little while today. And today is coming up on Christmas here. It's the 22nd of December. I got my Santa hat. It's almost a fool's hat, Rick, but uh, we got three subjects we're going to let people know. We're going to talk about local issues of water, Marin Water District. We're going to talk
Right.
about the homelessness situation. Specifically, you brought up what's going on in Sacramento, our state's capital. And then we're going to delve into the Build Back Better Act, where it stands and what it is or was. But let's begin with water, and it's a rainy day right now, and it looks like our little county is being bailed out weather-wise for this season. Rick?
And they're talking about being after this storm is over, being at 85%
Right.
capacity, which would be wonderful.
Right.
And but it begs the question. Okay, so that's fine, but Yuba and Marin Municipal did cut a water deal, and that's not for free. I can tell you that right now. You just don't take another district's water, put it on hold, and have and say, well, I don't want to use it, therefore you can't bill me.
So
Something has to happen.
how long ago did the contract get signed? And just give me a little more background about that.
It's been about a month now,
Uh-huh.
and basically it's moving. You're moving water from one department to another. So one department says, I'll take X number of water from Yuba, then move it over to here and switch back and forth until it finally comes through Richmond and up and over the bridge. But we don't have the pipeline yet. And that's another factor, is money now being set up to decide whether they're going to run the pipe on top of the bridge or underneath the top deck or even underneath the lower deck. If you're doing that, then you're going to have to pay something out to whomever you've given and I haven't seen anything about a contract being awarded to, let's say, a Gelati or anybody else. So it'd be nice to know where they stand there. And maybe MMWD is going to have to come up with a Zoom meeting for all the customers to keep them up to date. Right now, I don't see it.
Ben Hornstein, in his talk with me last summer, mentioned, and this is the fact with Marin County, that we can have a snap of a fingers and 3 storms and we're back to normal again, or have
Right.
a year and a half of drought and we can be in dire situations again, I guess.
Exactly.
So, you know, so as far as you understand, we have purchased. Do you understand the mechanism of this contract?
I do.
Well,
I do.
so tell me.
And so far, there hasn't been anything said about what that price might be. But in any water agency, you have to pay for your dibs on the water, and that's on you. If you don't, then you lose all access to the Yuba water. So maybe that's cool now that we're getting the rain, but if you want to keep it for the future, then you have to pay something out. And it'd just be nice to know. Right now, I don't see that happening. You know, in other words, tell the customers. I really feel that MMWD is not telling the customers what's going on. And what happened to us here?
I can see you. You're still there. me and Rick here are taking the day after look at our conversation. And so, Rick, I pulled up this article from the 9th that describes the Marin water deal. And for everybody's knowledge who's listening into us now, I'm going to read a few paragraphs from it that give a little more even in-depth information than what we were talking about yesterday.
Sure.
That the water deal was from Yuba County, that Yuba County Utility has agreed to sell billions of gallons of water for distribution to Marin County through a pipeline. It also involves the Contra Costa Water District. It says, while the district has not yet committed to building the estimated 100 million, 8-mile-long pipeline or purchasing any water, once again, it says the district is not committed to even purchasing any water, supposedly. Ben Horenstein, the district general manager, said securing the agreement is notable. He says we're very appreciative, etc. Final approval of the pipeline project and water transfers isn't expected to take place until January or February. Yuba Water Agency voted unanimously. Contra Costa would purchase on behalf of MMWD and be reimbursed. Cost about $7.98 per acre foot. There's a figure, a money figure. And
I think you were talking about there being 13,000 acre feet.
Right. Marin would be able to ask Contra Costa to buy as much as 15,000 acre feet. But I think that they use that 13,000 figure. Yeah, I don't see the 13,000. So I guess it was 15,000. The agreement is up to 15,000 acre feet of water would be able to.
Is that per year?
I think it's just a one-time shot of 15,000 acre feet and be able to hold it in the Los Vaqueros Reservoir near Mount Diablo until June 2024, rather than having to request it all at once.
So there is, and it's $7.98 per acre foot.
That's what it says. I'm not sure how that relates to what.
That's pretty cheap.
It does sound pretty cheap, doesn't it? Is that
because I think that Marin Municipal for 748 gallons charges. I think their initial charge is $3.50 per unit per 750 gallons. So now, if we're talking an acre, I forget how many gallons are in an acre foot, but it seems to me that's kind of cheap.
It seems to me that the Marin Water District, yeah, I'm thinking maybe the same thing. Though I don't have your knowledge that you have in terms of working in that world for almost your whole life.
Right.
Anyhow, it's fascinating. And then somebody was bringing up the subject of Richmond and the mayor there, who was upset with Marin County, and
right.
Now I can't remember if there's a lawsuit or
he's filing a lawsuit.
Yeah. So there are lots of hoops and it's sort of seems like it's sort of a feel your way kind of thing as they're trying to deal with this.
And he could also go to District 2, which is what the Bay Area is covered by in the state agency, and he could appeal that deal there, and he could also go to the the district that has Yuba, and also appeal it there. So that would tie things. it would tie things up even more.
Yeah, and maybe with these rains, maybe water in general will drift to the back burner of things to to be dealing with, or to be uh, even worrying about, at least for the moment, here in California. If we
Right.
don't, let's say,
But what has to happen is you can't, supposing this is the one wet year that we have, and then we have another 4 that are dry. You have to prep for that.
yeah,
So in a way, Yuba, if nobody jumps in there and messes with the deal, it would look like a good deal on the surface. But if you have lawsuits and
oh yeah,
whatever jumping in there, then
yeah,
it's going to be a mess.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I got, what did I get here?
Something flashed.
Bingo, got it. I don't see them being, even when we didn't have the water and now we were into the Yuba thing, I did not see one mention of water recycling, yeah, or in other words, toilet to tap. And if it were me and in my water department, I would want to tell the folks, if we don't get any more water, even buying from Yuba, we're going to have to develop some way of taking the recycled water, getting it up to the reservoir, and making, and what that process would involve.
Yeah.
Because if you're bringing the two agencies together, the sewer departments, and you have 8 sewer departments over here in Marin. So what do? Do you say to the sewer departments, you're going to work in one contract per sewer department, or maybe I'll just take from the biggest one, which would be San Rafael, or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, in listening to tuning into the local town of San Anselmo's council meeting, I know that subject was broached, that they talked about their being given the debriefed from MMWD regarding this recycled water. And my memory of what was the outcome of that was MMWD was telling San Anselmo and probably these other towns that this is very complex. I guess they call them purple pipes. I'm not sure if they're actually colored purple or what, that has to move this water in a separate system. And it seems highly complex. It seems like it's something that's not, from what I gathered, not going to be implemented very soon. They need to get big customers. It's not just for the single family home use, or as a matter of fact,
Right.
it might not even be at all for a single family home use. It's more for major consumers of water.
Sure. Well, the purple pipe in the industry tells you that you're dealing with recycled water, and that's not going to go into the potable system. And that's it. And I'm sure there may be a few colorblind plumbers, but if you come upon a purple pipe, then you have to know automatically you can't tap into it for drinking water.
Sure. Yeah.
So what Novato has going for itself, they have extended their purple pipe all the way out to where the Fireman's Fund building is that they want to develop.
Right.
But you can say, okay, you tell your plumbers, there's no such thing as purple pipe anymore. Anything that you want to tap into is fair game. But you really have to make sure that that recycled water has gone through at least 3 treatments, because your 4th treatment is going to be if you mix it with the other water, you're going to have to take it out of the ground and treat it again. So you have, this is what Orange County does. They take that recycle, put it underground, store it, bring it back up, bring it through a 4th treatment, and then you can say, okay, we have drinking water here, or water that can be used for everything.
That I got somehow felt I learned something about back in 1970s that, you know, if you just keep growing the population unlimited, you're just going to have a never-ending series of greater and greater problems and headaches trying to keep the whole thing managed. And that
Right.
requires something so radical and different that I don't think anybody even wants to look at it, because it's so daunting to think about how would we alter our lifestyles or et cetera, the plan. So tell me, getting back to MMWD and you feeling like that we're not getting the straight facts, is it, what do you see is the lack of communication? There is an openness to how they do their deliberation, is there not, or what goes on?
Well, there is, but at the same time, see, if I'm in a crisis, or I'm just coming out of a crisis, I want to let the folks know what each and every step along the way means. And we, for instance, my old water department, when we had our first big drought in the 70s, our general manager gets on for an interview, and what wasn't explained to the customers was we needed to raise the rates because we were taking in 35% less in water usage. So our general manager got on TV, and unfortunately, he had a bad habit at meetings of twiddling his thumbs. And so, cameramen being as they are, they did a tight shot of him twiddling his thumbs while he's telling the folks that, well, you need to use. We're in rationing now, and he's saying, well, you need to use a little bit more water because we need more revenue. and so as he's saying this, they did the tight shot on the twiddling thumbs, and that was when the city decided that maybe they needed a PR expert.
I think, you know, I think that's a perfect mystery metaphor of the problems of maybe what I just mentioned before, of like, what if we're going to keep growing without any you know, with ever finding a level place for this civilization to just take care of itself and go into cruise control instead of emergency, then we're more or less pretending or always going to be twiddling our thumbs waiting for the next
Yes.
So, Rick, I know you have a background in water, but we met through the California Catalyst organization, and
Right.
that is a local group that is trying to tackle these issues of how to bring about, how to keep local control and how to keep the people of California informed. And I'm just kind of giving that little shout out to Susan Kirsch and her organization in Europe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And let's move on now because of limited time. And you had brought to the attention to our little group some of the stuff going on with the homelessness situation in Sacramento specifically, but it's all over, of course. So go ahead.
I hadn't been to Sacramento in 10 years. And Sacramento is surrounded by 3 different freeways. Now, what the homeless do up there is they sleep underneath the overpasses.
Right.
Every overpass had a homeless encampment.
Sure.
And my whole thing is, folks, legislature, why are you going around to these different cities when the problem is in your own backyard? It was terrible. In fact, I was up there for another reason. And I said, well, I'm going to go to each and every overpass. It was all homeless encampment. It was crazy. As a kid, I grew up there for a year.
Yeah.
And back in those days, of course, you didn't have homeless. You didn't even have water meters up there because they used to draw from the river. There was so much water up there that you didn't have to have a water meter. You could use as much water as you wanted to. Things have changed. You have a outlying district to Sacramento that's bigger than what the whole town was maybe 35 years ago.
Oh,
And
yeah.
but getting back to the legislature, uh, I'm writing a column now about going up there, and I just came up with the idea that on TV one time, Gore Vidal asked William F. Buckley, he says, "What do you think is the top story of the 20th century?" Oh, and Buckley says, "Archduke Ferdinand found well and alive." And everybody stopped and thought about that for a while. Yeah, that'd be a hell of a story. Then there was no reason for World War One. So it got me thinking. I said, well, why not shift that story and say that instead of Newsom had been recalled and Mother Teresa came down from heaven and became governor, what would her first move be? And I thought about it and I said, well, her speech to the legislature would be done by a homeless person. And all they do is detail what goes on out in the streets. And it would go on from there. And it's just, and then I moved on to, it's a fact that the government that we have right now is government by neglect. And unless your bottom line is hurt, unless your lobbyists don't come through for you to give you enough money to run again, then you're in a bind. But right now, I think the problem is government by neglect, government overlooking the very problem that they're trying to cure in other cities when they've got right up at the Capitol. It's incredibly bad. And if I was whining and dining somebody up there that wanted to do business with California, they'd look at that and they'd say, hell, I don't want to do business with this state. They can't manage their homeless problem. And as long as we still have French Laundry luncheons going on with the politicals, and you still have that homeless problem up there, it's disgraceful.
It is disgraceful. And it's, there's sort of a, to me, this disconnect of here we're demanding, because of our compassion, the homeless situation is almost like this sales tool to emphasize the quote homeless crisis. And the state wants to mandate we build or kind of begin to urbanize what was used to be suburban situations to quote fulfill this notion of compassion or whatever. And yet it doesn't deal with it at all. It becomes sort of a kind of a broad tool to make people believe that what they're doing, I think, is compassion. What should we say? That's the basis of where they're coming from. But I feel like it's just all about somebody's putting money in their pockets and somebody else is designing the bills, and there's no real look at how human beings are affected, or just ordinary Californians like yourself, or so many who with their single family homes who have lived here. And we're all facing the same kind of pressures of just a lack of vision of what is sustainable. You know, we just keep wanting to build forever. It's my thing. You know, we have to find this way through this to have a different vision of what the future can be.
But the thing that drives me out of my mind is we just lost $20 billion in grifted funds from ADD. And so this radio show that I tune into from down south, they're called the John and Ken Show, which is the drive time radio show for KFI down in LA. Well, they interviewed this guy who's interviewed somebody, one person that they've got investigating the EDD stuff, and he's saying, "Oh, there's no use in going after the money because we'll only get pennies on the dollar." And they were nonplussed. They said, "Oh, okay, so you're just going to let it go?" And so I sent him an email and I said, "Hey, what about somebody going to the Gray Bar Motel? Come on, somebody's got to go to jail for this. You just can't let it slide."
Well, I think that's interesting, and it's fascinating because that gets us to topic number 3 of our little show here that we're probably going to be over time, but which is the Build Back Better bill, which Senator from Louisiana, a name I really love, John Kennedy, called it an orgy of spending. Like money
No.
has no meaning. And
Right.
I mean, I don't mean to be completely belittling what might be some good intentions of or hopes for people who feel that they, that our leaders know what they're doing with this expenditures. But well, before let me stop myself because I'm just going on here. As far as you know, Rick, the bill has been stopped in its tracks right now, isn't it? Just by a single Democrat.
Yeah, Joe Manchin, and Manchin got so much negativity from his constituents that he had no choice. And the gal from Arizona, and I forget her name, she's also gotten a lot of negative feedback. And truth be told, there's a couple of other senators that can't say that they're against it, but they are. So they're letting Manchin, and I can't remember the senator from Arizona, but what really has to happen in all of this, if I want to build back better, tell the government to just step aside and let the private enterprise do it. I would. Dick Spotswood today made a great point. He's talking about how long different projects have taken, and when you measure a similar project, just like rebuilding the 580 freeway after Loma Prieta, that was 12 years of rebuilding. Santa Monica Freeway went down about 25 years ago. It was back in business in 10 months. And that was probably a bigger undertaking than 580. But when you compare south to north, where are the votes? They're in the south. They're not up here. And so it kind of he's talking about the fact that the construction from Nevada up to Petaluma has taken 14 years, and we're still not done.
And you know what? It's going to, by the time it's done, and they just had more studies, or there was some article that I read that just kind of points to the fruitlessness or the deception behind these bills. If you are at the same time, you are trumpeting these grand plans to speed the highway and make transportation work, and at the same time, you are trumpeting the growth of, just like you're talking about, of Sacramento, Elk Grove, or Roseville, or Folsom, these towns that have grown by 100% in our lifetime, from sleepy little towns of 15,000 population to now up around 100,000 people, and just keep seeing that as we're kind of caught in this mess. When I go to the bill that is held up, and to me, it was a big hooray for Joe Manchin for sticking up for that. I think it's a blindness. If I just even go to the very first page of this 2,000-page document, that almost every page describes throwing out another $1 billion, and that's probably about the sum total. If you could do 2,000 times a billion, I'm not sure what the cost of this is. The thing of it is, there's no sense of anybody really being in charge of anything or an actual vision. It's just sort of like shoveling money. The very first page, which sounds great because it's about forestry and but fifth, I guess there's no point in going into it, people, but it just seems like it's wrong-headed. It's sort of like this overarching belief that oh, the government knows what's best, or just if you put money into the thing, it'll all work out. And then, of course, we're surrounded by all the ogres who are the cruel Republicans, who I guess I've becoming more and more one of them. Just are divisive because they don't go for this vision or lack of vision, I would say. I'm going on.
Well, what I find, go back to the EDD, 20 billion lost.
Right.
Well, we paid 20 billion for the moon program. And I find that highly ironic. I mean, the money isn't worth the same.
Oh,
but the whole thing is, you have to say to yourself, when I do this bill, it's going to be for the infrastructure, no riders on the bill. Riders, and that's what Manchin's looking at. He's looking at all these different riders that are on that bill. And when Ike did the highway bill back in the 50s, no riders. It was strictly for the highway. And if you could just, if I took a bill and I said, can't have any riders, it's going to be for this, specific to this, nothing else.
Yeah, I think personally, I think it's maybe well beyond the writers. It's I don't know how it gets crafted. I don't know how with 2,053 pages of
That's all the staffs.
Of all the what?
That's all the staffs.
Staff?
You have well, in the House you have 435 people with an average staff of about 6. So now you could have one part of your staff write one page, the other. I think to me that's what's going on.
I'm not sure. I'm wondering if the whole thing is farmed out to a bunch of lawyers, or if it's farmed out to there's a industrial group that is basically lobbies for money for construction projects all across America. Part of it's basically an industry. It's a financial industry. They're lobbying for, and of course, they're not. They want to get as much money and get as much projects going. I mean, the page one of this thing here is just a forestry. $10 billion for hazardous fuels reduction projects on National Forest System's land within the wildland urban interface. All right. So I'm just thinking, all right, 10 billion. All right, we got some problems with forests. Maybe this could be of help. National Forest System land within the wildland urban interface. So that kind of limits it. It means close to the cities. We're going to put this 10 billion to work to do. I mean, to do what? Then 4 billion for. But there's nobody in charge. Who's in charge of it? Whose vision is going to implement this? I don't know. I just find the whole thing from top to bottom. I think Manchin is trying to recommend that we just take it piece by piece and examine those pieces carefully, and then you might have something.
Well, do you remember what Ike said in his farewell address to the people? He talked about MIC. Right. Military industrial complex. Right. And he warned against it. He said, you got a lot of folks coming to Washington to lobby for what they want. And he said, you got to look at it carefully. You just can't say, oh, defense, boom, I'll write it off. No problem.
And you know, he penciled out one line in that. I don't know if you read about that, but he originally titled it the Military Industrial Congressional Complex.
Ooh.
And he decided to put a pencil mark
Wow.
through congressional.
Wow.
But it isn't, and to me, that's the same way. If you could almost take a look at every one of our representatives and whatever their little home website is that trumpets their accomplishments, you know, there should be some bold thing. These are my top 5 donors, you know, just right there. So everybody can look at your top 5 donors and understand where your bread is buttered.
The Orange County Register came out with something that was interesting. They gave a report card to all their state senators for Orange County.
Right.
And they just went, how many pieces of legislation they introduced, what they did as far as some of the important, like SB 9 and 10. And I said, I wonder if anybody else does this. So I dashed off an email to Spotswood, and he says, what would be better would be to do the same, have a yearly report card for our county supervisors. And I said, that's a hell of a good idea.
No, we're not, it's a challenge for us ordinary citizens. And I want to thank you, Rick, for taking the time, because it's really hard to construct a good letter to the editor or a good letter to anyone. And you've done that over this past year, right? You've gotten more than one, not just letters, but columns published. And
you know, I channel my Steve Allen. Steve Allen used to do that bit on his show, and I loved it. You know, the angry writer, and he'd get the band and the Tonight Show going, yeah, and it was, but it's I think of him whenever I'm writing, and you can just pop all this stuff off the top of your head. It's fun.
Yeah, well, it does take some discipline, and it's not, you know, maybe fun, but of course it is. You have to discipline yourself. You got to make it work, make it readable, and that's the issue of how do we hold these politicians accountable? And I guess my fantasy has been that we sort of need a new party. If once upon a time, wasn't that long ago, when somebody started the Reform Party, you know, 20, 30 years ago, I guess it was. What are these third parties doing in hibernation? How can we? To me, that would be where I would go.
You almost have to become like the Knesset in Israel, where the minor parties have a lot of heft, because if they align with one side or the other, then that's who's going to be in charge. And you'd have to have a big enough third party, or even a fourth party.
Well, and that brings us also to looking back on how California has gone in the opposite direction, forcing things with the proposition back in 2010. So we have this open primary that now only the top 2 candidates will even appear on the ballot from the primary. So they've eliminated all these third parties. And since we only have really a one-party state, where I think the total registration for Republicans in California is like 25% or less, so it's a one-party rule right now.
Oh, sure.
It's
I was shocked the other day that there was somebody from it was either CNN. It was CNN, and there was a story that came out about Nancy Pelosi during the whole COVID thing. Realized a profit on all her investments of $18 million for 1 year. So the reporter, he says, how can you serve in a body that would put 99% of people in jail, like Martha Stewart, for insider trading, but yet lawfully allows their body to insider trade with no penalty? And she says, well, no, that would totally change things. And and I'm saying, wow, who pressed that guy's button? Because that was one of the great questions of the day. If you could somehow say, okay, no more insider trading in Congress, how many people would really run that would be serious about the job rather than lining their pockets? I don't know.
Yeah, I think March 11th is a filing date for, I just saw a newspaper article for the elections coming up, and I heartily endorse any young person who just makes the minimum age to run. I don't even know what it is, Rick, to be a assemblyman, a senator, or anything.
21, I think.
Okay, could be. I mean, we just, I mean, it should, I think I like the concept of a party where people are coming together to be happy and to say, you know what, I can get elected. I'm telling these young people, if you were promised to say that you would not take anything more than $100 donation, put it up on your website, and you had the right policy, to me, us old folks, I would say, I'm all right, kid. I'll just take a chance with you.
Sure.
You just limit yourself, and you be
Yeah.
unlimiting yourself for a lifetime of doing good things for our country, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Rick, all right, wrap it up, Rick, on your holiday note.
Well, my holiday note is I always liked the phrase that JFK came out with when he said, we go to the moon not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And there are a lot of hard decisions to be made. So, with the Christmas spirit in mind, I think people's hearts will be in the right place, and maybe things will be that much better next year.
That's beautiful. All right, I'm with you. It's a simple phrase. Merry Christmas.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
Or in Hawaiian, it's Merry Kalikimēha.
Mahalo. Aloha.
Oh, yeah.
All
Right.
right. All right.
Merry
Thanks for the
Christmas
talk,
to you,
Rick.
guy.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay.